Greetings from the inside of a very, well, damp on the outside Alfa Romeo Tonale, which is just about to launch here in Ireland. And we are taking a look, kind of a brief look at the car. This is like a half an hour, bit of time with the car. We'll have it for a longer review in just a few weeks here on the channel, so make sure you do hit subscribe. This is the first new Alfa Romeo in quite a few years, and this one is just beautiful to look at, as you can see from the exterior lines, the outside. It is a gorgeous car. I actually made a mistake today. I was trying to grab green and I got grey. But, you know, there are some really fantastic bright colours. You can't buy an Italian car without getting it in a really bright colour, but we're stuck with the grey today, which is, look, we'll make do. It's fine. So there's two versions of the car. You've got a mild hybrid and a plug-in hybrid. Alfa Ireland reckon maybe 50-50 or maybe 70% in favour of the plug-in hybrid versus 30. It's less than 10 grand of a difference. It's still a big jump though to go from a mild hybrid to a plug-in hybrid. So there's two engines coming to Ireland. There's a mild hybrid, which is an MHEV. That's a 1.5 with 160 brake horsepower. And there's a plug-in hybrid, which is a 1.3 with 280 brake horsepower in total. That will give you a range of about 600 kilometers with petrol and electric combined. And in the plug-in hybrid, it's approximately 60 kilometers of range. Real world mightn't quite be the 60, but it's testing the time of real world. It mightn't be quite the 60 kilometers, but test drive today seems to indicate that it's fairly reliable. Also interesting to note that Alfa Romeo will go from full BEV in 2024 to zero emissions by 2027. They will have no iced powered cars by 2027. That's one of the fastest transitions of any brand, but they were late to the party, in their own words. One thing that you've got to commend Alfa for is the design of the car from the 2019 unveiling at Geneva hasn't actually changed all that much to the actual production version of the car. That does not always happen. There's three levels of trim: TI, Speciale and Veloce. And the Speciale is only available in a plug-in hybrid. The other two trim specs are both mild hybrid and plug-in. So the starting price of the car is $49,995. The most expensive is $58,495. That's for the PHEV Veloce. And then the Speciale is PHEV only, but that's $57,250. So actually the walk from the Speciale to the Veloce is 1,200 quid, 1,245 euro, which is not bad, but I think Speciale is probably the sweet spot. That's the middle one, and that's the one that's only available in a plug-in hybrid. So looking around the outside of the car, lovely famous Alfa grille on the front. The headlights look cool. You've got an Italian flag, which is actually the wrong way around on the driver's side in Ireland, but it's the right way around on the left-hand side of the car, or the right side, well, the left hand of driving if you're driving it on the continent. Looks good from the side, looks good from the rear. It's an Alfa Romeo, it's going to look good. The inside is really lovely to look at too. They've got the retro dials from really early, like 30s Alfa Romeos. They've kind of brought that back. It's obviously digitized, but it's still a lovely little nod to it. The screen is actually a bit small, I think. If it was a little bit taller, would give you more, not necessarily more information, just you'd expect it to be bigger. But the interior of the car is very nicely laid out. It is snug, very, very snug. Like even the brake pedal, my foot is kind of catching on the plastic housing that just goes underneath the steering column. So everything is a bit, you know, the seats are snug. The space for your front and rear passengers is a little bit snug. The back of the car, leg room, potentially a little bit snug. But there's lots of physical buttons. There's lots of, you could jump into this car and kind of go, oh yeah, that's what that does straight away. Lovely aluminium finish on the Alfa Romeo logo at the start. You've got a stop-start button. So I really do love the interior. Classically Alfa. They haven't kind of abandoned what they stand for. And yeah, like even the Stelvio from a few years ago, there's touches of that still in the car. If you go for the plug-in hybrid, so you have an EV only mode. You've got adaptive dampers in this car. You can firm the whole thing up if you like. It's a nice place to sit. Very Italian, very beautiful, and a good sized boot as well, even though it is this version is a plug-in hybrid, so you got the batteries. In the mild hybrid, the battery is more centre, low down in the car. That's got 48 volt as well, which enables just more smooth, seamless transitions away from a set of lights. That just extra little burst of power, and the type of turbo that's in the mild hybrid version basically gives you that low down torque, but that continues right the way through the rev range, so it reduces turbo lag, more efficient. But the plug-in hybrid is less than 50 grams per kilometre of CO2. So if you're thinking of BIK and stuff like that, the plug-in hybrid version might be for you. So as I look around, a lovely place to sit. Exterior is gorgeous. Let's go on a quick drive. We're going to drop the car back. And as I said, if you want to hit subscribe, we'll have the full review of the car very, very soon. Probably not a bad time now, actually, to tell you that I'm also now doing an audio podcast called Driving Forces with Bob Flavin, who's another YouTuber here in Ireland. So if you check out car podcasts, we talk about cars, we talk about guy stuff and travel and what we're watching this week, but there is a primary focus of cars and what we're driving and what car news to the Irish market and stuff like that. So Driving Forces, get it wherever you get your podcast, and thank you very much. So this is 280 brake horsepower once you have some charge in the car. The paddles on the steering wheel are still massive. Again, it's a classic Alfa thing, but they do kind of get in the way of the windscreen wipers and the indicator stalk. But I will say it still has a sense of the sports car heritage in the vehicle. Like, yeah, you do feel a little bit of extra weight going into a bend. You're conscious that this one has the battery on board, but you can still drive it on for the size of the car, and that's always been a thing with Alfas and their SUVs. They still have some sense of the sporting heritage that was there. Now, I'm not driving the 160 brake horsepower mild hybrid today. Apparently that is nippy enough with the turbo setup of the car, low down torque, but not quite sure. There's obviously a big jump on this car with 280 brake horsepower. When you put it into D mode, which I presume is dynamic, you get a nice bit of a slightly different grunt. You get a picture of the car on the display here briefly. You get an extra little red line where your rev count would be. And there's a bit more urgency. There's more petrol engine being delivered to the powertrain. Now, one thing I will say about the dynamic version of the car when you're in that mode, and it is going to hold on to the revs a bit longer by its nature, but it's not always quite sure what gear it wants to be in. It'll definitely wait a while before it changes up. Now you can obviously override that with your paddles. Plenty of safety as standard, so frontal collision avoidance, blind spot, got radar cruise, good camera setup, all the kind of tech stuff, safety kit that you'd expect for this price. Now, pulling away from a junction, this is obviously the four-wheel drive version, so there's plenty of grip. There's now the gear is just not sure of where it wants to be exactly. There is plenty of urgency about this 280 brake horsepower version of it. You certainly wouldn't be left waiting around, and with that kind of slightly elevated position, I think the handling performance of it is enough, because you're always going to brake a little bit more cautiously coming into a bend than something that is a bit more low down. But look, there's lovely levels of grip to it. It's really, really wet. They're tricky driving conditions today, and the steering, the feedback to it is very, very responsive. So again, that kind of trailing back to the fact that there's a sports car heritage going on here, it's really, really responsive. It is quite light at times. I do feel it weighting up now as I go a little bit quicker, but it's definitely on the more engaging side of SUV driving. So I like that they've held on to that. Brakes are good, but you still get that initial point of so many plug-in hybrids where we're doing regen and we're doing friction braking here. I say it an awful lot of times on the channel, and I think that's something that will have to and will improve over time with cars. Just that transition between regen and friction. There is an e-save mode, so you can save some battery for later on, or charges if you're going into a low emissions area and you're doing a longer journey. You don't want to deplete all that battery range. You can hang on to it. Visibility is great all around. It's quite a snug setup, you know. You kind of feel a bit cocooned. The center tunnel here kind of gets wider as it goes towards the center of the car, and that kind of, like, knee room is still okay, but it's just something to be aware of. Seats are very, very comfortable. Lovely support for them, nicely cushioned. Doesn't have thigh support, leg extenders on the back. Also, something you might have expected is a head-up display. There isn't one in this, but I do like that sense of urgency that's there. I love that there's adjustable dampers. You know, not often you get that kind of stuff in this segment of car. We'll cover it in more detail when I have the car for longer, but you can schedule charging times. That's all fairly easy to use. System is pretty quick, like flicking between different modes. You might get a black screen for a second, and then whatever display you're looking for comes on board. But generally, it's quite quick to use. I'm just kind of surprised about the screen size. I would have expected by today's standards that it would be a little bit taller. The width of it is fine, but just a little bit taller. One other thing I've noticed just on this very brief drive is the phone holder. My phone, which is an iPhone 13, kind of moves a little bit as you're driving. So on occasion, it will kind of stop charging and then charge again, and it's kind of flicking away in the background on the screen, telling you that wirelessly charging. Oh, it's not charging. Wirelessly charging. Oh, it's not charging. Very loud indicators. I suppose it's better to know that they're on. I do think the price of it is actually all right. When you think of the looks you're getting, this is a car that's just going to look great. Just please get a red or a green or a blue. It looks fantastic. Mid-50s plug-in hybrid, 208 brake horsepower with a lot of spec on it. Like if you go for leather seats, you can get air-cooled and heated seats. But these Alcantaras are actually lovely. And this is a Veloce. So I think when you look at kind of some of the other cars in the market, it's fairly well priced. So Alfa Romeo are back, baby, and they're as Italian as ever. You will still feel the passion. That's more French, isn't it? Fuel economy is averaging around 47 miles per gallon. In our language, that's about 6 litres per 100 kilometres. So about 48 miles per gallon in the UK, 6 litres per 100 kilometres. If you do just drive on zero emissions mode, with your charge, that will obviously be a lot lower. So thank you for coming with me this far on the Alfa Romeo Tonale. If you do want to support this fully independent YouTube channel, please consider subscribing, liking the video, flicking it on to an Alfa Romeo fan, or if you want to go the whole hog and do me a massive favour, head on over to buymeacoffee.com/Nobby on Cars. There you can buy me a coffee. You can buy me 5 coffees if you like, all at once. But no, seriously, appreciate all the support, and thank you very much for watching. I will see you on the next one.